he was about the business. So if what you were coming to him about was going to impact the business positively, then you probably were going to get a yes. And I think a lot of people don't think about that, their ask. Like, is that project you're bringing up going to suck more money out of the company and take them down a different road than the stated goals or our strategy? Are you off the strategy? Um, then that's a no. But if what you're doing is ultimately going to lead to revenue, business, and increase, I don't know, customer base, whatever, then yeah. So he was always about business, so never personal. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Never personal.
Yeah.
Um, and and I think those two things, like getting things done and like it's business, never personal. But he was personable, which was funny. He was a personable human, but you always knew like you better come to him with some stuff, not just any old idea you were thinking about on a BART train. Like you need to come with it.
Right. Right.
It can be no half-baked idea. Like you need to like have fully thought it out. So I think
Yeah.
holding people to that standard, and then getting his stamp of approval that really helped people around him become better. I think back to like, I always like to use sports. I love sports.
Yeah.
And I know some people are like, oh, you shouldn't use sports because it alienates other people and blah, blah. It's not inclusive, but I love sports, so I'm going to use it. But like a person like Michael Jordan, it wasn't just about his own, like he was good. He made Scotty better.
Yeah.
He made everybody else around him better. And that is one of the things I think about a leader that has the respect in a company is that they probably, they're that person that makes everybody else better because they're holding standards.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
So you talked about it a little bit. You educated me at Tech Inclusion when you gave like a presentation, and you actually thanked Jesse Jackson, I think it was, for writing that letter. Can
Yeah.
you talk about what led up to? I think it was him and the NCAACP also. They wrote a letter to all the tech companies. Like, what was the reason behind him starting? I know that it's kind of obvious to me, but like, what was the backstory behind that?
Listen, Jesse is a civil rights leader. We all know that.
Right.
And was not his first time challenging an industry. Back in the days, he had challenged, automobile, like, several different industries along the way. Um, it just so happens that the tech industry was his next place that he wanted to disrupt and ask some questions of. And he was a shareholder. He had Google stock, smart. And so he was able to attend a shareholder meeting held by Google. And being the prolific speaker that he is, he decided that he wanted to stand up and challenge and say something at that share meeting. And I think that was in 2013 that he did that. He also knew the power of how to use the media and get coverage. And I think, because of his years of activism. And so tech industry didn't want that heat, right? That he was gonna bring. He could get the media to follow him to the meeting where they capture him asking and no one wanted to be embarrassed publicly in that way. So he did that, and then he wrote letters to most of the major tech companies, kind of just making some inquiries as a
Yeah.
shareholder, which people need to think about that. When when you get stock options, when you have stock options in a company, like that is some power. So you need to think about that uh, as you're working in these companies. But he used that, sent the letters, and some companies ignored him, as is their right. And other companies responded, well, wow, maybe we should get somebody to look into all of these questions he's asking about the diversity of our workforce and this and that. Now, I love me some Jesse. Me and him that had some good laughs, and I thank him every time I see him. And I know he's not in the greatest of health right now, and we're getting ready, losing a leader. Hopefully, some others will spring up.
Yeah.
But I wish he had called me before he sent them letters, because his original ask around the diversity of the workforce got conversation started, but you and I know is not the full conversation.
Right.
Because just having a bunch of people on the roll books and not worried about how they're treated
Oh
while they're
yeah,
there,
yeah,
not worried about how they're able to move up or not while they're there. The exit rates of said people, because you just looking at how we're getting them in. Nobody asked how quickly are you exiting the people out.
yeah.
So it wasn't really a full picture. If I were to critique, that would be my only critique. But I'm super grateful to him for getting the conversation started, and getting me a job, basically, because I love this work.
Yeah.
Even in the tough times that we're experiencing right now, where it's under attack and being used by the media a lot
Right.
in the wrong ways, and people are fearful of the work. I'm still here for it. I still believe it is worthy investment for any company.
So do you think 11 years later, do you think we're in a better position? And when I say we, like Black people, Latino,
Yeah,
typically,
yeah, for sure. Listen, I'm a Gen Xer. I have a baby boomer mama. And one thing we don't do is talk across generations. And one thing we don't do in this work is talk a lot about the generational uh, diversity. I talk to my mama a lot, and someone who grew up in Jim Crow South. And I say that those words, and they kind of land with some people, but like, please go look it up.
yeah, yeah.
It is not as lighthearted as I'm saying it.
Mhm.
Um, she sees the difference
Mm.
in her lifetime. And so I know we want this vast change. We want all the top 10 tech company CEOs to be Black and to be like, I know that's what we want, but there has been change in the last 10 years, and maybe not as speedy, but we're trying to undo hundreds of years of systems that have been placed, power structures that have been in place. So it's not going to happen in just a decade. But I do believe that we have seen some change in the last few years in a positive way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I've thought a lot about this, and I actually think the real change are where you're going to see like more empowering of us in tech is going to come through private equity firms, venture
Yeah.
capital firms, hedge funds.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, I've heard countless stories. I remember when I first like started working in tech, one of my close friends, Dad, he told me about a guy who met his investor on a plane, and then after the plane ride, he wrote him $1 million check. And I thought he was lying. Because I'm like, and from the world I come from,
That does not happen.
that
Right.
doesn't happen. And I hear more of those happening to,
Mhm.
predominantly white people or Asian, Indian, right? And so like how do we actually, because I think that's where the inclusion starts, because me and you know about opportunities in business that are because of where we come from,
Mhm.
that other VCs just don't understand because they never fully experience it. They don't have that it's not necessarily a part of their culture per se, like these certain innovations. So like how do we, because you have experience being on VCs and stuff like that, like how do we break into VC to actually like help solve that issue?
Yeah. There we have more Black owned and run funds than ever in our lifetime. Like Zeal Capital. I don't know if you know Nasir. We have funds.